It's time for the Skyhawks Coaches Corner, recorded live at the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum.
Welcome to the Skyhawks Coaches Corner. We're being filmed today in the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum and brought to you by Mercy Regional Medical Center and Centura Health as always. Today we're joined by Fort Lewis Ed women's track coach Brett Sublett. And you're in a runner's paradise. The sun's starting to shine a little bit. The snow's melting outside. It's time for track season, I guess.
Yeah, it's been time for track season. We've been running in the snow. We don't,
Okay.
It's nice to have sunny, warm weather, but
Sure,
it doesn't impede us when it's cold and snowy.
But do you feel like, all right, the fact that the sun's out and everything, start handing out medals now. You start competing now. It's been a long COVID winter probably for your athletes as much as any of the others. The chance to get out and to compete again coming up here soon, they've got to be excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially obviously with track being canceled this time last year. It was about a year ago when everything kind of started going off the rails. So there's a lot of pent up competitive desire, I hope. And pretty soon we get to see what everybody's got.
What did that, you were the one, literally, we did the interview to write the story about how excited we were for the season, and 2 hours later, word started to come down. Various things were getting canceled, events, and then all of a sudden, what we thought was maybe a temporary setback, a couple of weeks later, we found out was going to be permanent, at least as far as the season went. How much of that is still? Have you got PTSD from that, or are you guys confident and ready to go this season, or does that sort of make you wonder if the other shoe's going to drop? Are you guys concerned about losing events this spring?
We have. I guess the mentality is just kind of one day at a time, and
Sure.
we've learned that since a year ago, but all the way through cross country season in the fall. Our team was really fortunate that we were able to compete in cross country in the fall, and a lot of sports were not able to, but. Yeah, we've just sort of adopted the mentality of like we're going to do what we can every day to stay safe and to be ready to compete and also be ready to change course and to be flexible. So it's helped our mentality just to be more nimble and adjust to whatever the conditions bring.
So what have you? You said you've been running. The snow doesn't bother you guys. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do as a team between cross country and track. You're running and out in the snow, but. Is it sort of every man for himself? Do you just get out there and sort of keep your endurance at a certain level, or are the kids working out in the wintertime too, or is it a little more structured than that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. People are training year round. Running, distance running specifically is a year round endeavor. You don't get in shape in a few weeks and be ready to compete. It's 12 months out of the year. So yeah, over Christmas break. People, most people went home. There were a few folks that stayed here in Denver, but your training regimen is a little less structured, but you're still getting quite a bit of training volume in. It's just not quite the regimented workouts that we do as a team on the track.
Okay, and kind of up to kids in the wintertime to run with other kids or run alone. Is that one that varies from one runner to another, or do most kids like to pair up or get in groups and go?
Yeah, during a non-COVID time, the more people you can get around and run with, it typically, especially on harder workouts, it's much easier to motivate if you've got a group of friends or teammates around you.
Was it just easier because of COVID or necessary to run alone? Was that a challenge for kids over the winter to stay motivated without that group dynamic maybe?
No, not for our team, and that's kind of a requirement or something when I'm recruiting that I look for is that to be a successful runner, you have to really be intrinsically motivated. That you can't really rely on somebody to get you out of bed in the morning when the alarm goes off. I'm not going to be there, tapping somebody on the shoulder to get them out of bed to go running. You've got to have that. You got to have that desire kind of in your heart and want to get better.
Okay.
And have that drive.
And as and we talk about what the middle distance and the long distance races is what we're going to do as a track team. So everybody is really sort of is there a lot of variety to training, or are you guys the entire track team is training as distance runners basically, aren't you?
Yeah, it creates a lot more cohesion at practice, and we don't have a group of high jumpers and a group of sprinters and a group of, pole vaulters or whatever.
Right.
We're all training for very similar events. As we get closer and closer to competition, we will start diversifying our workouts a little bit, where 800-meter runners are not going to be doing the same thing that 10K runners are doing,
right.
and things like that. But in general, over the winter, everybody's conditioning and most people's workouts were very similar, and it makes it easier. It makes the team atmosphere and the training and the practices much more fun.
How much movement, we were able to hold home softball games in February here in Durango. And you watch players move from, someone might play first base and the next thing they can play third base. How many of your runners are able to run a 10K and run a half mile? Or is it more special, or switch from one to the other? I know at the high school level, they can jump from event to event, but at this level with the training required, do you know who your half milers are in the fall? Do you know who they are already? And who your 10K kids are, or is that stuff that maybe changes over time?
No, that's a great question, and a very interesting question, because for most of our upperclassmen, juniors and seniors, those distances and those events are a little more set in stone. With some of our younger runners, freshmen and sophomores, really it's kind of a work in progress, and those runners are still. I'm still fine tuning and kind of finding out what their sweet spot is, and
right.
where. In high school, they may say, oh, all I ran was the 2 mile, which is an event we don't have in college, which typically in high school, you're a distance runner
right.
if you're running the 2 mile.
Right.
But after watching people run and working with athletes individually, I might see a lot of potential as one of those 2 milers as an 800-meter runner. But that's something we'll work on with, particularly with those younger runners as they progress, and we'll find out what they're most suited for.
How much of that can you tell from workouts, Brett, and how much do you need to throw a kid in a race and find out what they're best at?
I don't. It's so much of racing is mental, and I hesitate to ask somebody to do a race that they're not comfortable doing. Because a lot of it is that if you've got some uncertainty, you're maybe not going to run as confidently
right.
and as successfully. So it's a lot of conversations with those runners that I'm sort of prepping them for. Hey, I know that the 5K may not be your race, but your training's been going really well. Here's what I'm identifying and what you've been doing in workouts, and try to build them up and boost them up to do a race that they may not feel 100% confident about. So. It's a working with the athlete individually.
Sure. And coaches have got to take the long view with athletes, particularly young athletes. But what you said there, you spoke of confidence, and in distance running in particular, I know kids, coaching kids, they get it in their mind. This kid beat me last week. He's going to beat me this week. He's going to beat me next week. In distance running, that can be a 20-second gap that you've got to eat up on a kid, and it could take 6 weeks to get that. If you pick that kid on the trail or on the track, how do you keep up confidence, or how do you build up confidence in a sport that the development curve can be pretty long sometimes? How big of a challenge is that to increase confidence in young racers and say, oh no, you're on that level, you can compete with them?
No, that's it's really interesting because COVID has sort of, in a way, contributed to that, and we see it at our level, plus even in the elite professional running level, is that since there haven't been as many races and haven't been as many track meets, everybody's kind of home, sequestered, training hard, kind of in their own,
right.
In their own isolated world, and what you're going to do on race day is not as known as back when we were racing every weekend. You kind of have that mentality of like, oh, well, this person from this school always beats me, but with COVID, we've kind of been sequestered in sort of like, doing our training and kind of keeping our team together and our team spirit high, and we're doing what we need to do and the work that we need to do. And come race day, it's sort of like we have to be confident that we stayed home and did our homework, and on race day we're going to show what we've got. So
as a coach, what you're saying is you've been able to use COVID to some extent to help your athletes mentally.
I think so, yeah.
If you can take a positive from the COVID experience, then that's got to be an advantage going into the season. We're going to talk more about the season coming up, more about runners and their confidence and comfort levels. I'm interested in hearing more about that from you, Coach. Okay. We'll do more of that when we come back with the Skyhawks Coaches Corner right after these.
We know that there are certain sports that are more at risk to have ankle injuries. And so for my athletes in those types of sports, I'm often recommending not only preventative fitness activities, but also stretching and maintenance exercises for proprioception, and even so far in some situations, preventative bracing or taping. And you're struggling with either a current injury or an injury from the past that's causing you to have pain and dysfunction, I highly encourage you to get over with Mercy Sports Medicine. The athletic trainers there are a great first line of contact for ankle injuries in general. And then also if you need a consultation here at Mercy Orthopedics with me, they can help that happen seamlessly.
Welcome back to the Skyhawks Coaches Corner, brought to you by Mercy Regional Medical Center and Centura Health. We're filming at the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum. I'm your host, Bob Bonner, joined by women's track coach Brett Sublett in Fort Lewis College, getting ready to start spring track season. We've got the early bird meet coming up at CSU Pueblo here pretty soon. The sun's shining, we're ready to go. Coach, we spent a lot of time talking about, I don't know, the runner's mentality, the off season between cross country and track, and how that was maybe different because of COVID. But we're now to the point we talked about. Okay, it was easy for kids to maybe train, think they were maybe training harder than the other kids. Nobody's seen each other for a few months. A lot of those mysteries are going to start to be unveiled here at CSU Pueblo. A lot of those questions are going to start to be answered. Tell us a little bit about your group, about your team, and who you think might catch some people's eyes this year.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna. We'll have a great representation over at CSU Pueblo in a couple of weeks. Oh, sorry.
You're good. A couple of weeks,
Yeah.
wherever we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
At CSU, that's coming up here March 19th, 20th, I believe. But yeah, we'll have people running from 800 meters. Up to 5K, a couple of young women running the steeplechase, which is a really cool event. But yeah, in the 800 meters, expecting a lot out of some upperclassmen like Dorothy Elder, who you're going to talk to. Angel Curley is looking really good at practice and in workouts. Going up to the 5K distance, Taylor Murphy and Esther Beck have had really solid off seasons and got a lot of training volume under their belt. So looking for them in the 5K. Mikaya Salzano, who had a really strong cross country season, as you all might remember, she's going to be really focused on the 3K steeplechase. And we've been doing some work on her jumping and clearing the obstacles in steeple. So
tell us, take just a second and tell us a little bit about the steeplechase. It is what you think of when you hear steeplechase, and if you've seen the English riders on horses do it, that's exactly what you're doing. But it's over a distance race. It's sort of a cross country track blend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got historical ties, as you mentioned, kind of going back and thinking of horses, hunting foxes and jumping over barriers, and that's sort of what the runners are doing. It's run on the track. There's 3 hurdles that you clear around the 400 meters, 2 that are just regular hurdles in the middle of the track, and then on the end of the track there's a water obstacle where you're actually going over a hurdle, and then on the back side of the hurdle there's
actual water.
And you have the technique involved is you get your foot up onto the top of the barrier or the hurdle and then push off so that you clear the water. And you just hope for the best. Sometimes you'll see people landing in water that's a couple of feet deep and they fall and slip back into the pool there. But yeah, it's a really unique event, and it blends endurance and strength, because as you're running 3 kilometers and trying to jump over those barriers, your legs get really heavy.
And when you watch the race, you can feel like you're playing the old Pitfall game on Atari. All right, so if Mikaya's going to tackle that, then let's talk about the distance kids, the 5K, 10K kids. Have you got some kids that are going to get out there and gut it up on the long races?
Yeah, hoping to qualify a few people for the 5K and even the 10K for RMAC at the end of the season. And yeah, so some of those are going to be, as I said, upperclassmen. And as the season goes on, there might be some young women that start out the first part of the season running the 1,500 meters, and then as they get a little bit more fitness under their belts, I might bump them up into the 5K and the 10K.
Okay.
Our freshman girls are having a really solid off season. Looking for good things out of Jaden Knight, who's a freshman. Okay. Ellen King, who had a really good cross-country season, and this will be her first track season. She did not compete in track at her high school. So she's having a lot of fun learning the sport, and like I said, like expecting really good things out of her. Katie Fankhauser is another freshman that she just, well, over Christmas break, she did a mile time trial while she was back home training, and set a PR in the mile, just running by herself on the track. Okay. So excited for her upcoming spring season, and she'll be running 400, 800, and 1500.
Okay. Okay. Now, and I didn't realize you will drop down and you'll run kids in the 400. That's always been my favorite track event. It's sort of been, that's the race that separates the sprinters from the distance kids a lot of times. So you're actually, for a distance team, we spoke, Dorothy, we'll have her on the show here in a little bit. You've got some sprinters. You've got some 800 kids, and you're even going to throw a couple in the quarter mile. Yeah,
and developing that speed in the 400 and 800 is invaluable, even if the long-term outlook for an athlete might be a 5K.
Sure.
Developing that 400 and 800 speed is invaluable when you're looking at the long-term career of a distance runner.
How much, let's talk a little bit, and just so folks know as they read the stories over the course of the season, a team that's only going to put distance runners out there as far as track team goes. You're not going to run field events, you're not going to be doing some of the sprints and hurdles. How do you realistically, people are going to look at team scores and they are what they are? Where can you guys even look at that and say, okay, this is the range we need to be in, or is everything really the focus on each individual athlete and improving with them each week? Do you just sort of throw the team score aspect out of it?
We don't throw it out of it because, when it comes down to it, we're all, anyone that's competing at this level and at Division II athletics, and especially in our conference, they're a competitor, and you toe the line in a race and you want to beat people.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Good. Well, and I've had, and here's why I bring this up. And maybe it was because they were math teachers. The track coaches in my background, ironically enough, were math teachers, and they always said track's a numbers game. Boy, you got to put the kids out there. You got to be in the events. You got to. So when you talk about the 400 and maybe letting some kids as they develop run in that race and some of the others, it sort of helps in that regard too, doesn't it, to fill races even for you guys if you are scoreboard watching?
Yep, it helps the team score, absolutely.
Now, how much with the freshmen? That's just curiosity. I know from my daughters running track, how many of your freshmen are like, hey coach, I can get us a few points in the triple if you'd let me. I used to in high school. do any of them still, as they watch that natural competitive edge, do they try and talk you into letting them, let me go throw the shot just this once?
Yes.
Do you have that with kids?
Yeah.
So what's your answer to them when they say that? Because you got to understand that, but at the same time I understand that you're doing specialized training and they can't do that anymore. Is that what you tell them? Or?
I do, and I also let them know that it's a little bit different story when you're competing in the NCAA at Division II. That it's not your high school back in Nebraska.
Right.
That there's some there's some really serious triple jumpers and shot putters and high jumpers, and you don't want to go out and embarrass yourself against some of these athletes.
And if you're not training for it, there's a chance of injury there too.
Absolutely.
All kidding aside, but it's great to know that the kids still want to get out there and compete and sit there and think they can help the team and do it.
Yeah.
So what are your expectations then? What are the goals that you set for your squad going into this season? On paper, what do you tell your kids? This is at the end of the year. This is where I want to see us. What are you saying those goals are right now?
Qualifying as many individuals as we can for the RMAC championships, and with the running pedigree in our conference, qualifying for the RMAC championships is a pretty high honor. So that's what we're looking at the times that it took to qualify for RMAC over the last few years, and we want to get as many of our young ladies to the RMAC championships as possible.
Okay. What is your confidence level? Are you feeling like one of those teams haven't had the benefit of a cross-country season that some of the others didn't? Do you guys feel pretty good? Feel like you are that team, at least in the distance events, those events you're fielding, that you're a team to chase and look out for?
Absolutely, yeah. We've had a really good, consistent off season. As you mentioned, we had a good cross country season, and we're actually able to travel and race and compete. That creates more confidence. We've competed a lot more than a lot of other schools, so we've been very fortunate. And we've been home training here in Durango and training at altitude and shoveling the snow off of the track so that we can do workouts. And So yeah, we've got a little chip on our shoulder that we have something to prove going into this season.
Good. Hey, Coach, they're giving me the signal to wrap it up. We're going to do a little rapid fire, 5 questions for you. You give me the first thing that pops into your head, okay?
Okay.
It's going to take us a minute.
Okay.
Favorite sports movie?
Chariots of Fire.
Nice. Good, good. Hoping a track guy, someone would throw that out to me eventually. Favorite track event?
Steeplechase.
Steeplechase.
Yeah.
Nice. Have you the human version or the horse version? You prefer the human version?
I've never done the horse version, so I can't rule it out. I mean, I might really like it.
What third question would be? What would be your favorite sport besides track or running then?
Football.
Okay. Okay. Favorite athlete?
Oh gosh, Michael Johnson.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And your shining moment? Greatest moment as a coach, athlete, anything else? What's your shining moment from your athletic career over the years?
Oh man, I get my first finish racing professionally at Hawaii Ironman.
Nice,
yeah.
Nice, very good. Well, Coach, good luck this year. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we will be speaking with Dorothy Elder on the Skyhawks Coaches Corner right after these. Welcome back to the Skyhawks Coaches Corner, brought to you by Mercy Regional Medical Center and Centura Health, and filmed this week at the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum. I'm your host, Bob Bonner, joined now by Dorothy Elder from the Fort Lewis College women's track team. Dorothy, a junior with, if my notes are correct, you're a 4.0 student in political science, is that right?
Yeah, political science and journalism.
And journalism.
Majors, so.
I'm actually a newspaper publisher, so that's a nice combination. I didn't get the journalism degree though, so stick with it.
Nice.
Hey, let's talk about track a little bit though. That season's starting for you in a couple of weeks. We've already heard Coach say that that he thinks you're ready to go on the half mile. You know, how do you... Tell us about the season coming up. Tell us how you've been training over the winter, and what do you think? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I do feel ready. I feel a lot more ready than I have probably my entire collegiate career. Given the pandemic, we got a really rare opportunity to train extra long and just build a really solid base, and I'm feeling really fit and fast.
How fit and fast is important in the 800. You got to be both. You know, if you're going to run the 10K just fit, it'll maybe get you by for a little while. So is the fast part, is that what draws you to the 800? Or is that something you sort of found out along the way?
You know, I don't know. I started running as a sprinter.
Okay.
And so the 400 was kind of my go-to. And then I think when I built that endurance base that came out of cross country, naturally fell into the 800. And so it's just...
How do you turn a sprinter into a distance runner? That doesn't, I mean, I've not, most sprinters abhor the thought of doing what distance runners do. Was it hard to talk you into it as a young runner?
Yes, definitely. It was quite funny. I had a really bad season my sophomore year of track in high school. I wanted to quit. My mom was like, just try cross country and then you can call it quits. And I trained that summer and I ended up really liking it. So
what'd you like about cross country? Was it the chance to get out and run, or did you realize that you were just maybe more suited to a little longer distance?
Yeah, I think both. I think that there's a certain beauty in learning to appreciate a good run and be outdoors, and how those things can kind of blend together. And also,
So what you said, you were able to train long and get in a lot of distance, a lot of miles over the winter. again, as someone who runs the half mile, where that's your specialty event, how much benefit is all that extra distance? Is every bit of endurance still key to any race that's 800 meters or more?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think endurance is kind of what makes or breaks your performance in the 800, because everyone goes fast that first lap, and then it's just survival of the fittest who can keep it for the longest in that second lap.
It's the ability to go fast longest then.
Yeah.
So when you're training for like the 800 and putting in all the miles, I just don't get too technical with it, but you kind of jog along for a while and then put your head down and sprint it. Do you do a lot of intervals when you're out running and training by yourself in the wintertime? How do you prepare yourself as a sprinting distance runner, if such a term can be used?
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of recognizing that some runs are just going to be more aerobic and you're just focusing on maintaining an easier pace, and then having runs where you do throw the occasional fartlek into it. You are working on getting that faster hip movement, leg movement, working on that quick rotation. That's so important in the 8.
Do you deliberately, do you know before a workout which one it's going to be? Do you say, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on today, or do you kind of take what the run gives you?
I think there's some greatness in taking what the run gives you and just going with that.
Let's face it, that's the greatness of being a distance runner, is taking what the run gives. That's what draws you. When we go back to you saying that you tried cross country, that's part of what ended up drawing you to distance running, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, they're giving us the high sign. I'm going to make him hold off for one more minute though, because I do want to go back real quick and just jump off a track. You're a student athlete, and go back to the 4.0 journal, double major 4.0. How hard is it to balance that, to excel in the classroom and excel at a sport at the same time at the college level?
It's definitely difficult. It requires organization and time management, but I think if you're picking a major that you love, then it doesn't feel like school, especially in these upper level classes that I'm in as a junior.
And you do, and you've made the right choice for me. Obviously, it sounds like you still enjoy what you're doing, and it's like they tell us with work, you're not really working if you enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
Would that be your tip for up-and-coming student athletes? Find something you like?
Yeah, choose something you love, and it won't feel like school.
Good. All right, well, speaking of something we love, I'm going to ask you about 5 things you love real quick. You saw Coach play the one with me and answer some rapid-fire questions. So you ready? We're going to do 5 with you real quick.
Okay.
All right. First one, favorite sports movie?
McFarland, USA.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. Boy, I like that better than Chariots of Fire, Coach.
Oh.
She went, McFarland, USA is a great one. Favorite athlete?
I love the current runners, Emma Coburn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Way to go. No, way to pull names. Start looking them up. The Olympics is coming up. People got to, those will be household names in a couple of months.
Yeah.
What sport would you be in if it wasn't track? What's your favorite sport besides track?
Basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah.
Did you play basketball in high school?
No, but I'm really good at knockout.
All right. Hey, nope, that counts for something. Once that becomes an Olympic event,
Yeah.
Fort Lewis will be
Sign
well
me up.
represented. And I'll ask you, because maybe it's just the parameters of the college season, but favorite track event, is it the 800?
Yes.
Okay. And then last one, your shining moment from this point in your career. What's that thing that keeps you coming back to running? What's that thing that right now is your pinnacle so far?
I think I talked about that sophomore season I had that was really bad. I trained really hard that summer, and I killed it my junior year of high school, and I think that was the first time I saw that hard work pays off.
Okay. Junior year of college, looking to replicate that feeling this year in track? Good.
Yes, lucky
Good.
junior year.
Good. Well, good luck with that, Dorothy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That'll do it for the Skyhawks Coaches Corner for this week. We want to thank Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad for hosting us, and our sponsors, Mercy Regional Medical Center and Centura Health. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next week, keep soaring.